When I saw the picture, it wasn't just my husband holding another woman's hand. It was my whole marriage slipping through his fingers. My name is Laura Bennett. I'm 40 years old, living in Chicago, and I've been married to Daniel for almost 15 years. People always said we were the perfect couple. He was charming, funny, the kind of man who made everyone feel special. But somewhere between the business trips and the long silences at dinner, I stopped recognizing the man I married. And one random Tuesday night, while scrolling through his phone, I found the truth framed in pixels. My name is Laura Bennett, and I used to believe some lies are too small to matter. I thought if you love someone long enough, deep enough, your faith could fill every crack in the relationship. I was wrong. That night wasn't special in any way. It was a Tuesday, the kind of night where the world feels too tired to care. Daniel came home late. Again. I could hear his keys drop on the counter, the sound of his shoes scuffing against the hardwood floor, and his voice, soft but distracted, calling out, "Hey, honey, I'm home." He didn't wait for an answer, and I didn't give one. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through work emails, pretending not to notice the smell of someone else's perfume that clung faintly to his jacket, a scent too young, too sweet, and definitely not mine. He smiled at me in that casual way that husbands do when they think routine love is enough. "You eat already?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. He nodded, kissed my head like a reflex, then disappeared into the shower. His phone buzzed twice. It was sitting next to me on the coffee table, face down. I remember telling myself, "Don't look, you're not that kind of wife." But then it buzzed again, and something inside me moved, almost like instinct, or maybe the quiet scream of a woman who's been ignored for too long. I picked it up. The lock screen glowed against the dim light. It wasn't password protected anymore, or maybe he had just forgotten to lock it. The universe, I guess, sometimes decides when you're ready to see the truth. The first thing I saw were text messages. Short ones, innocent on the surface. "See you tomorrow. Had a great time today." And then one that didn't even try to hide. "You looked amazing today, babe. Same place next week?" Same place. My chest tightened. I scrolled higher, faster, like I was chasing something. And then I found it. A photo. Daniel, sitting at our café, the one where we used to go every Sunday morning. Same table by the window, the one with the chipped corner he used to tease me about. But he wasn't alone. He was holding someone's hand across the table. The woman wasn't me. She had long brown hair, maybe in her 30s, smiling with that kind of open warmth that made the photo glow. And Daniel, he looked happy, really happy. The kind of happy I hadn't seen on his face in years. I froze. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't cry. I just stared at it. And suddenly, time stretched like an elastic band. Everything around me went still. It's strange how betrayal doesn't always feel loud. It's quiet. It's a whisper in your chest that says, "This is it. This is where love ends." I don't know how long I sat there, staring at that photo. My reflection stared back at me from the black screen once it dimmed tired eyes, a hollow kind of calm on my face. I realized I'd been living beside a stranger and calling him my husband. When Daniel came out of the shower, I had already placed his phone back where it was. He asked, "Everything okay?" I smiled. "Yeah, everything's fine." And for the first time, I meant it, just not the way he thought. Because something inside me had broken. But in that break, something new had started to breathe. That night, I lay next to him in bed. He fell asleep within minutes, as usual. I stared at the ceiling, the blue glow from the streetlights painting lines across our room. I thought about every conversation we'd stopped having, every time he said, "I'm tired," and every time I believed him. It hit me that marriages don't fall apart in a single moment. They crumble one small silence at a time. By morning, I knew I couldn't unsee what I'd seen, but I also knew I wasn't going to yell, beg, or cry. I was going to make him see what he'd done the way I saw it. And when I did, I promised myself it would be quiet, simple, and unforgettable. The night after I found the photo, I couldn't sleep. It wasn't because I was angry. Anger would have been easier. It was because I finally understood how small I had become inside my own marriage. I walked into the kitchen around midnight, barefoot, wrapped in a blanket, and sat at the table. The house was silent, that deep kind of silence that only comes when love has already left. I looked around at the things we had built together. The framed photos on the wall, the stupid ceramic rooster Daniel's mom gave us, the candles still half burned from our last anniversary dinner. Everything suddenly looked like a museum exhibit. The marriage of Laura and Daniel Bennett, 2008, 2024. I poured myself a glass of wine, even though I didn't really want it. It just gave my hands something to do. And while I sat there, the memories came back uninvited, unstoppable. The first time Daniel and I met a bookstore downtown, both reaching for the same novel. We laughed, and he offered to buy me coffee. He used to talk with this kind of warmth that made you feel like the world was smaller, like you were safe inside his words. Our wedding was small, 30 people. Lots of dancing, lots of promises. And somewhere between then and now, those promises turned into habits. And those habits turned into distance. I remembered how I used to wait for his car lights outside every evening. I remembered the way he used to brush my hair out of my face when we watched TV. And then I remembered the months when that stopped happening. The late nights at work, the new cologne, the laughter he didn't share with me anymore. I wanted to cry, but I didn't, because in that silence, something stronger started to grow inside me. A strange kind of clarity. It wasn't my fault he changed. It wasn't my fault he stopped seeing me. But it was my choice what I did next. By 3 a.m., I knew what I wanted to do. Not revenge, not destruction, just truth, pure, undeniable truth. I wanted him to face the reality he thought he could hide. The next day, I went through the motions like nothing was wrong. Made breakfast, packed his lunch, kissed his cheek. He smiled, said, "You're the best," and walked out the door like he always did. I watched him leave and realized how much of myself I had spent trying to be the best wife, the best homemaker, the best version of someone he didn't even look at anymore. That night, when he came home, I was still silent, but in my mind, I was planning not with rage, but precision. The truth deserved a stage, and I was going to build it, calmly, beautifully, devastatingly. The next morning, I took the photo from his phone, the one of him holding her hand. I transferred it to my laptop, printed it in full color at a photo shop downtown. The woman behind the counter smiled and said, "That's a lovely picture." I smiled back. "Isn't it?" She didn't know she was printing the funeral photo of my marriage. I bought a silver frame on the way home. Simple, elegant, the kind of frame people use for wedding portraits or anniversaries. When I slid the photo inside, I paused for a moment and just looked at it. He was smiling the same smile he used to give me years ago, and I realized how easily love can be recycled when it doesn't come from the heart. That evening, I cooked dinner, nothing fancy, just pasta and garlic bread, like always. The table looked normal, warm even, except for one thing, the framed photo sitting right in the center. When Daniel came home, he looked tired. "Smells good," he said, dropping his briefcase. Then his eyes landed on the table. At first, confusion, then recognition, and finally, fear. He froze, his face drained of color. "What is this?" I looked up from my plate, met his eyes, and said quietly, "I thought you'd want to see how love looks from the outside." End quote. Adia's back commender. I stood up, took off my apron, and walked past him. He tried to grab my arm, but I pulled away gently, not angrily, just firmly. He stammered, "Laura, it's not what you think." I turned back and said, "Daniel, the photo says enough." I left the dining room. He called after me again and again, but I didn't answer. That night, I slept in the guest room, not because I was hurt, but because I was done. The next few days were strange. He followed me around the house, talking, pleading, explaining. He said it was just a friendship, that the woman meant nothing. But when someone lies so smoothly, you start realizing how long they've been practicing. I didn't yell, didn't argue. I let silence do the talking. Silence has a power that words never will. He started leaving earlier, coming home later. Maybe out of shame, maybe to see her again. I stopped asking. At night, I'd sit by the window and think about who I was before I became his wife. I was a woman who loved painting, who wanted to travel, who used to laugh too loudly. Somewhere along the way, I had folded myself small just to fit into his version of love. And now, I was done being small. I began making plans, quiet ones. I found a small apartment across town. I withdrew my savings, signed the lease, and started packing one box at a time. While he wasn't home, the day I left, I didn't leave a note. I didn't owe him closure. I already gave him the truth, framed and shining right on the table. 3 weeks later, I sat at that same café, the one where the photo was taken. It was a sunny morning, the city alive outside the window. I ordered my usual black coffee, 1 sugar, no cream. The waiter asked, "Will someone be joining you?" I smiled and said, "No, just me." It felt good. It felt right. As I sipped my coffee, I watched couples pass by laughing, arguing, holding hands, love, in all its messy forms. And for the first time, I didn't envy any of them. Because I had learned something powerful, sometimes the most peaceful endings are the ones you create yourself. I looked out the window and whispered to myself, "He forgot to delete the photo, but I'll never forget what it taught me to choose myself." And that, right there, was the moment I realized I wasn't broken anymore. I was free.